Hey guys, real quick, this is just a interview I had with Fort Galt back in 2019, August of last year. And it would have gone up here on this channel, obviously, if the channel was active, but it wasn't. So I'm just putting it up on here to help kind of fill in the gap of what's been going on lately. So here you go. I came down to Chile first. I did visit Paraguay a couple of times. I got a degree in game and simulation programming because I had this fantasy of being a game developer like most programmers do. But then I decided location independence was more important, so I shifted to web development, went to one of those Silicon Valley boot camps, and sort of cross-trained into web development. But no, I came straight down to Chile, and I think a lot of digital nomads do it. Some of them do it because they want to have this life of perpetual travel. I'm not necessarily that way. I mean, I'm fine with it, but it's not a goal of mine. But I want the independence to be able to uproot and go wherever I want.
Why did you come all the way down to Chile instead of somewhere else?
There was just a lot of discussion of Chile in general.
Okay.
In sort of, you could say, libertarian or just expat communities. There was just a lot of discussion of Chile as a country. Mainly the economy is, well, it's pretty much the freest market economy in South America. It's not perfect, but it's the best you can get in South America for sure.
So do you go back to visit in the U.S. very often? Do you keep tight connections, or?
Not really. I've visited once last year. I'm actually going to visit again here in a couple months, but I came down in like 2013, 2014. I remember, I don't know if you remember back then, that was middle of Obama's term, and something was wrong. I could just sense something was wrong with the whole political situation. Everything was just broken, and I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to go somewhere else and see what life was like elsewhere.
You mean you didn't want to stay home and fix the system from inside?
No, I tried that, actually. I mean, I Googled, first thing I did was I Googled alternative political parties, and then I was like, ooh, this one looks interesting, and then it's like, this is silly, that thing's going to happen. And then I did discover Ron Paul, of course, as many other guys did, and I got involved in the campaign and everything. So I kind of jumped into that machine a little bit, like, let's change the system from within.
I did the same thing. I mean, when I was in Vancouver, I did join the Libertarian Party, and it was campaign season, so I jumped right, like, in Canada, there's this service that's supposed to be a nonpartisan government service that trains candidates and managers and stuff on how to run campaigns. And, I mean, they're very nice, I mean, you go to these conferences and they don't care what party you're from or whatever. They're very helpful. They've got all this material and all these little, but once you bounce around in that system for a little while and you see who's involved and see how things work and stuff, I mean, you either decide to do it because it's an easy job that has no prerequisites. It's literally just a popularity contest, and if you want the job of a representative in Parliament, you can just pick a district that has like no competition and go run there and get the job and go to Ottawa and have the job, and you don't have to do much. You sit in the cozy chair and check your Facebook all day and pretend to be a representative. So I mean, there are people that decide that that's the kind of career and life that they want, but that's not what I was interested in. I was more of an activist, like I wanted to affect change and introduce people to liberty and all this kind of stuff. And man, that system just beats it right out of you, because once you're in there, you see that it's all set up not for liberty. It's a machine. It's a big business, and everyone inside doesn't want it to change. They're very happy with how it is. Like, they'll quibble about details, but overall they don't want the system to fall apart. They don't like the idea of anarchy. They don't want to shrink the government down to nothing. They love these jobs. They're cozy, and they don't have to do much, and they get paid very well. And they're respectable. They get to show up in a suit and tie and pretend that they're important.
Of course. And
so, like, I mean, of course, in history we have a few examples of people that tried to change the system from inside, and it didn't turn out so well. So I almost was afraid for Ron Paul. Like, if he would have actually won, they would have shot him, because he was threatening the whole game, and they don't want you to threaten the game. So it just forced me to kind of think about it from a different perspective and kind of come to the conclusion that you can't just show up at someone else's game and mess it all up on them. they're not going to let you. They're going to shoot you.
You mean a low-ranking cog in the machine isn't going to change the machine anyway?
Exactly. So then what
And
are
a high-ranking one will get shot?
Yeah, like, so what are your options then? Like, practically, if you want to live as free as possible in your own life, and you have a lifestyle that you want to maintain or whatever, like, you just have to take responsibility for it by yourself. You just got to do it. And if you can't do it where you are, then you got to move and find somewhere else where you can. So
Yeah.
I think that's what's kind of attracting a lot of us down here. Is like Chile's got the stability that we're used to in terms of how stuff generally works. I mean, we've got decent roads, we've got stuff that functions when it has to, but it's not overbearing. It's not like this tyrannical, high-tech digital machine that tracks your every move and taxes the snot out of you and stuff. It's like, especially down here in the south of Chile, like, even though there are a lot of regulations and bureaucracy and layers and things like that, they're not like breathing down your neck. Like, you can skirt around stuff and nobody really cares too much as long as you're not stepping on toes, you know? As long as you're not pissing off your neighbor, you can do pretty much what you want, you know, but if you do violate somebody, then they'll throw the book at you, like, as it should be, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's a small town, so don't piss off, like, the town big shot or whatever, but, you know.
Yeah, like common sense stuff that we kind of learned growing up in small towns, you know?
So you got to be diplomatic with
Yeah.
the right people, but...
Yeah, and I mean, the small town vibe and way of doing things, I mean, it's kind of good, I guess, that I grew up in that context, because that's kind of what we're dealing with now. Once you get to know people around, then you know who to call on when you need certain things done. Like, with what we're doing right here, we're attracting a lot of like-minded people down who have skills. Like, we needed a website overhaul, so hey, look who happens to be here. We've got a coder, we've got a web developer, so he did our website.
Yep. And just real quick, going back to the whole, like, staying strategy, you know, as I said, I tried it too. It's, in the U.S., I don't think it's a different situation. It's not quite as easy as sort of picking some low-level position and taking it.
Right.
But I also found the whole strategy to be kind of silly in the end, because it was like, what was our plan with the whole Ron Paul movement? It was like, let's flood the county-level committees with a bunch of us, and then we can write the committee-level platform for the local Republican Party. Because politicians stick to the platform, or something. Like, I mean, what am I even doing? You know, it was. I actually ran for like one of those seats. I forget what it's even called, but it's like, in the end, it was like, it was such a pointless endeavor. You can really only affect change in your own life. You can't move massive, ancient brick walls.
And just as a matter of principle, it also brought me to the point of like, just kind of accepting that other people are not mine to change. You know, like, people choose their ideologies, they have their own values, they choose their politics and whatever, and it's not my place to come along and change them. Like, if they want a society run a certain way or whatever, then if I don't like it, I can move and do my thing somewhere else. I don't have to stay and fight with them. You know?
Yeah, and if you stay in that environment and you don't change your circumstances, then you end up diving a little too deep into the prepper mentality and thinking about like bunkers and guns and canned food, and it's like, that's not going to be a life anyway.
It's,
you know,
stressful too, because everyone's out to get you now. You know?
Exactly. Like, it's much easier just to move somewhere else where you're out of that environment.
Start from scratch.
It really, I mean, that's the way to have a new life if you want one. So, yes, relocation over trying to change any monstrosity like that from within.
Yeah. And then once you have set up, like we have, as people see what you're doing and they like it and they're interested in potentially joining you, you have to be kind of careful too that you don't just bring the old crowd right back in to, you know, bring you right back to where you were. So like, we've been kind of taking the slow and steady approach, trying to attract, you know, a compatible sort of person, you know, people that fit our culture and are going to jive well with us and everything. I mean, the trade-off is it takes longer to do it that way, but I think in the long run, since we're actually going to live here as our home, like, it's a worthwhile investment just to make sure that we maintain what it is that we started.
Yeah. You're not like advertising locally.
Right.
It seems to be very much targeted at expats. So I think some people might wonder, is that on purpose, or is it?
Yeah, for sure. And we try to communicate that in such a way that is clear without being obnoxious. Like when we first started out, like the very first version of the website, like the language was much more strong and would put the average person off quite a bit more. But we toned the language down over the last couple of years, and I think we found the sweet spot of just appealing to people that would potentially be compatible enough where we can at least further screen them, you know? And it's not going to look too weird or scary, because at the end of the day, like, the average digital nomad that stumbles in here, like, they may not share the same politics or whatever, but that doesn't mean that we can't get along. Like, as long as we're open to discussion and we're not interested in changing each other and that sort of thing, then we can find common ground and work stuff out, and it's not a big deal. But, I mean, what most people do in this part of the world when they want to sell real estate is they just list things on a website like Yapo, which is kind of similar to Craigslist, or Portal Inmobiliario, which is one that's specifically tailored to real estate. And that's just wide open. That's just shouting what you have from the rooftops, and anyone can jump in and buy and whatever. But that's not what we're going for. We have a much more intentional approach, so we couldn't really use those traditional mechanisms, hence having to build a very tailor-made website.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not just any other building or any other apartment complex, right? It's like, it's a community with a purpose. Well, you probably just don't anticipate finding a lot of locals that happen to be like looking for something like this, right?
Well, no,
isn't
and also,
it more likely an
I mean,
expat's gonna
to be frank, this is not the cheapest deal in town. Like, if somebody just wants to live in Valdivia, they can go to Valdivia and shop around and find something that'll suit them just fine. And if they want to live by the coast like we do, that you can shop around here and find a cheaper piece of farmland that you can just have for yourself and not be part of the community. But the community framework is something that we started from the very beginnings, and you know, we want to maintain that going forward. It's a very specific portal we have, and when you come through that portal, you meet us, you get to talk to us, you get, you know, we'll have some FaceTime, we'll do Skype calls and that sort of thing, get to know each other, and you'll quickly get a feeling for whether or not you're compatible, or we're compatible with you, or you'll fit in, or whatever, like, which I think is a very important step to get out of the way early on. So I think we're on the right track with that, and time will tell. I mean, as we can see, we've got the exterior finished now, and we just got to do the inside, and people will be ready to move in before you know it. As people move in, I mean, you'll get to see their stories too. We encourage everyone to kind of share their experiences as they come down, so we'll look forward to sharing all of those, and I guess the sun's starting to drop here, so we should wrap this up. Thanks for jumping in on this one.
No problem.
We're gonna go do some more work here. There's a bush that needs to be chopped down over here, so
More than one.
I gotta bust out the sword and get on that.
It's an actual sword too.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
All right. Till next time.